Today, on a special Prairie Sportsman, Forager Nicole Zempel highlights how to identify and harvest juniper berries.
Interestingly, they're not true berries. They're actually cones.
Then she invites her fellow Minnesotans into the kitchen to use foraged ingredients to prepare fish, wild game, teas, and tinctures.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Cheers to a good harvest.
Welcome to Prairie Sportsman. I'm Bret Amundson. This week, we're going to do something a little bit different. Longtime viewers of the show will recognize Forager Nicole Zempel. She helps you identify various plants and mushrooms found in nature. Well, this week, we're dedicating an entire episode to foraging and how you can use those naturally sourced ingredients to help you accentuate the flavor of your wild game cooking and serve as a foundation for other homemade goods. Enjoy the show.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. By Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. And by the Friends of Prairie Sportsman. To become a friend of Prairie Sportsman, visit pioneer.org/Prairie Sportsman.
I am standing next to a beautiful Eastern red cedar. It is a species of juniper, of which there are several species of juniper. This tree is a native species to central and eastern U.S. The scientific name actually means that it's a tree from Virginia. That's just because when people started coming from elsewhere and colonizing, people noticed this tree in Virginia. Telltale signs you're onto an eastern red cedar are, you got the berries here, that's a telltale sign, but something I always look at is the bark. It's actually kind of a reddish, brownish color, and it looks like it's peeling. This is a female tree, and you can tell that it's female because you're seeing these beautiful blue berries. Interestingly, they're not true berries. They're actually cones. The male tree has little brown, tiny cones, and those carry pollen sacs, which in the spring, that's going to release those pollens, and then it'll reach the female trees, pollinate, and then you get, we'll call them berries, even though they're cones. It takes about 8 to 9 months for these berries to ripen, but interestingly, there are moments where you're going to want to take the less ripe berry. If you're into anything with home brewing, fermentation of any kind, making wild yeast, you're going to go for the unripe berry, and they're coated in a little white powdery kind of substance. That's the wild yeast. This whole tree has been used medicinally for centuries, and the whole tree can actually be utilized, but we're actually gonna highlight for you and illustrate how marvelous these berries are in the kitchen. So we'll see you in the kitchen. Welcome to downtown Granite Falls. We are here at the lovely Yes House utilizing their kitchen space. So big thank you to the crew at the Yes House for letting us come in. Today, we are going to uncover the marvels of the juniper berry. And I am here with my friend Carrie, a preservist. I call him a master pickler. And he is gonna show us how to utilize the juniper berry and pickle some amazing fish. Take it away, Gary.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, so the main thing with juniper berry is that it is traditionally used in Swedish pickled herring. So that's what we kind of are tying it into with pickled northern. This is northern. So we're gonna use some juniper berry along with the pickling spice to kind of create a traditional Swedish type pickled herring, but out of northern. So the first step is you're going to take your northern, you cut it into bite-sized pieces, then we're going to put it into a jar, and then we're going to put pickling salt in it and cover it with vinegar. And then that we stir it up, stir it several times a day for the first day, and once a day after that for 5 days. So we'll put the fish in here.
And so right now you said we are working with northern.
Yep, this is northern. But you can pickle basically anything. You can do crappie, walleye, bass, bluegill. Okay, so now we're gonna take the pickling salt. This is measured out 1 cup. And then we'll cover it with vinegar.
So I've never been a fan of pickled fish, but I have to say, Carrie was kind enough to share some with me not too long ago, and I loved it. And I shared it at Thanksgiving with my family, and it got rave reviews. So I couldn't think of a better person to come in and pickle some fish.
It worked out great. So there, you just top it off with your vinegar, and then you're going to stir it up because you want to make sure that the salt gets to every piece and every part of the fish. So what you're trying to do here is you're breaking down the muscle tissue of the fish and the bones. So you just give it a good stir.
Does it matter what kind of vinegar you use?
5% is the best.
Okay.
5% acidity is where you want to be.
So just stir it multiple times on day 1 and then once a day for the next 5 days.
Next 5 days.
Okay, cool.
So now this goes in the fridge. When that is done for 5 days, then we're going to take it out of the fridge. You're going to put it in like a colander and rinse it. And then you're going to soak it in cold water for 15 minutes. And now what that does is that's going to kind of bring that back, all the tendencies of your fish back into your fish.
So kind of firm it up a little bit.
Up again. It's kind of like taking a steak and letting it rest after you cook it or grill it, so those juices come back into it. So you're kind of doing the same thing with the fish.
Okay.
So then after that, then you are ready to make your brine. So we're going to start with the California port is what it is. It's a very high volume alcohol wine that will help to break that stuff down. So it's going to be 2 cups. Just pour it into the jar. And then it's going to be 1.5 cups of sugar. And then next is going to be a cup of water, and any water works. And then I just use a regular pickling spice, and you're going to put in 1.5 tablespoons. And then this is where we're going to put in the juniper berry. So we're just going to take about 5 or 6 of these juniper berries. And you want to make sure that you slightly crush them or crack them. Because all you're really doing is you're releasing the aromatic oils of the juniper berry. So there is our juniper berries. And then we're just going to stir this up.
So it only takes a few, really.
Yeah.
Like it's not, okay.
You don't, because what you're doing with the juniper berry is going to give you a little citrusy and a little pine flavor.
Okay.
Fish. So you just stir that up until the sugar is dissolved.
Then so this brine then becomes part of like the finished.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So then when your fish is done, what you're going to do, this is the finished product.
Yum.
So you're going to take your fish after it's been rinsed and sitting in your cold water for 15 minutes. What I do is I take a handful of fish and a handful of onions and you layer it. And you layer that together, and then once you got all your fish in there, you're going to have about 1/2 gallon. And then you're going to pour your brine on top of that. Stir it once a day for 4 to 5 days. You can either leave it in the jar and just leave it that way, serve it that way. Or you can put it in pint jars if you want to, and then you can just give a pint jar to a friend, or you can keep it, or...
Okay, and right now we're just gonna dig in.
Don't mind the cookie stars. It's actually pretty good.
Let's see, we'll use this. So give it a little stir and then...
And dig in.
All right, this is so good.
And I actually think the onions turn out almost as good as the fish does.
Here you go. All right, look at that. Cheers.
Cheers,
All right.
bon appetit.
This is so good. That's good.
Nailed it.
I am here with my friend Jessica. I cook very simply. Jessica will take something incredibly complex and make it look simple. She's just an amazing baker, cook, chef. So thank you for being here with us today. Thank you. We are gonna highlight the juniper berry. Traditionally, it has been used as like a seasoning for wild game meat. And so today we are working with my favorite meat, venison. So Jess, why don't you take it away and show us what you're going to do with this.
All right, so today we are going to braise this venison in a red wine sauce seasoned with juniper. So to start, we want to really just rough cut some vegetables. You don't have to be very precise with this. It can be very large pieces because it's all just going to go in the pot and cook with the meat. You're not going to actually use these later. They are just seasoning. So we're going to do carrots and celery, all rough cut. And then we're going to stick in a whole head of garlic. So we're just going to cut the top off so some of the flavor can come out. We're going to throw in a handful of cherry tomatoes. This acid's going to kind of help balance the gaminess of the deer. We of course have to have some onion. And again, it can be super rough cut. And then the star of the show is the juniper berries. Since they're so strong, we're going to use kind of a pinch of them. Also, because we've got a lot of very strong flavors going with the garlic and the onion and the juniper berries, we're going to put a little bit of sweet in to kind of balance. So we're going to put in a couple of pinches of brown sugar. We don't want to go too crazy with that because we don't want it to start caramelizing in the sauce. And we're going to add almost an entire bottle of wine. If you have a Cabernet, that is a good one to use. And then the alcohol in this is just going to also kind of help break down kind of that gaminess and any of the muscle that's in the deer meat. And it's going to make a really rich sauce at the end. We're going to use a little bit of vegetable broth just to add some more liquid to the mix. So we don't want to use a chicken stock or a beef stock. That's going to change the flavor of the meat away from tasting like venison. All right, and then we're gonna just season both sides of this with salt and pepper. I'm gonna pat it in. And then we are gonna sear this to get a nice brown crisp on both sides of the meat. We'll take that away. All right, so we're getting a good sear on this side. We're gonna flip it over and we've got some of that nice darker brown going around the edges. We're gonna let this side sear. All right, and that side is beautiful as well.
Ah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So now we're just going to transfer the meat into all of that sauce. Just gonna press it down in there. And then we're just gonna add the lid and stick it in the oven. We're gonna have the oven set at 300 degrees for about 3.5 hours. And so here's what we've already started, since this does take 3.5 hours to cook. And so we have this
Look at that.
pan full of beautifully cooked vegetables,
Oh,
and
it
the meat is
smells so
very tender. So what we're gonna do now is take some of the sauce from this. That's all seasoned with all the vegetables and everything, and we're gonna put it into a saucepan. About a half cup, three quarters of a cup. And now we're going to make a reduction out of this. So our sauce is starting to boil, and you're gonna want it to get to a full rolling boil. You're gonna wanna stir pretty frequently.
Okay.
Because you are gonna have some of the fats from the meat and whatnot in here. And continuously stir. And now that we've got a boil going for a while on that, we're going to take about 2 tablespoons of cold butter. We're just gonna drop it in. And that's gonna make the sauce just a little richer. I'm gonna stir that in while it melts so that the fats don't separate from the liquid in the pan. And then at this point we can turn the burner off and just let the butter melt in. Give it one more little stir, make sure the butter hasn't separated. And then you're gonna just pour that over the top of all of this.
Oh, yum.
And then we will top this with a little bit of fresh parsley.
Oh, my mouth is watering.
Yeah,
Thank you
there you
so
go.
much. Gotta get a little bit of the meat with
Oh,
the
yeah.
potatoes and the sauce. Oh,
Gotta get that
What a
nice dark
treat.
crust.
that's amazing. Jess, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing your amazing culinary talents with us, and I look forward to eating the rest of this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome back to Fast Forage in the Kitchen. Today we are highlighting the wonders of the juniper berry. My friend Krishana is an amazing, amazing creator of tinctures. And so I couldn't think of a better person to have to enlighten all of us on the benefits of some of these plants we're working with, as well as how you make your tinctures. So thank you, Krishana.
Well, thanks for having me. When you think of a tincture, I want you to think of an extract. So like a vanilla extract is just vanilla tincture. So it's pulling out the essence of whatever herb we're using. So a juniper tincture is going to be useful for several different things, both medicinally and then also in preparing food. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to tincture it in some apple cider vinegar. And that is going to be something that is really useful to do like a marinade or a salad dressing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that just sounds good.
And some people will also use it to flavor drinks, and it'll give it that juniper flavor. You can use it in place of a gin to make some sort of a mocktail if that's what you're interested in. So, shall we make some tincture?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna just take the berries and I'm gonna crush them because what I want to do is increase the amount of surface area that's being touched by the liquid. So I'll pour these in and just kind of start crushing. So this is literally going to be an extraction. I know.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful? What does it smell like? It smells like...
To me, it reminds me of like a sagey smell, yeah.
Yeah.
Sagey evergreen.
Yeah, very evergreen. Very, very evergreen.
So you don't want to pulverize them, right? You just want to give them a good, kind of a good mash.
Correct. I'm not gonna go totally ham on them. I'm kind of going until I see the seeds.
Sure.
So now we're just gonna throw this into a jar, and I chose this size literally only because I had it in my cupboard, and because it kind of matches the amount that we're gonna put in here. So I like to fill my jars relatively full because we don't want there to be a lot of space on the top. And so if I had less, I might go for something even smaller like this. If I had more, I would obviously do a larger jar. Okay, so I've got my berries in there, and I'm just gonna kind of eyeball this, and this one isn't gonna be all the way full, so if I were actually at home, I probably would at this point change over to this jar. It is what it is.
We work with what we have.
We work with what we have. And this is my apple cider vinegar that I'm going to use. And I just jarred this yesterday. And I made this apple cider vinegar.
Nice job.
Thank you very much. I got the recipe from my friend Nicole. So, so I'm just gonna eyeball it 2 parts to 1 part. And that should be about enough. And set that to the side. An important note, whenever you go to put the lid on your jar, it's very important that you take parchment paper and set that on there first, because whatever liquid you're using, if it's the vinegar or the alcohol, it's going to rust away at your lid here. It'll cause rust, and when you get to the point where you're ready to strain this and you notice that you have something wrong with your mixture.
So parchment paper.
Parchment paper prevents rusting.
And how long do we let a tincture sit?
So the next step that's very important is to shake. You're gonna shake it about once a day or a few times a week for 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And if you have a cool, dark place to put it, that's great. I have a husband who works out in the basement, and I stick this in his workout space, and his contribution to my tinctures is that he gets to shake them when they're on the shelf. So if you have a husband that works out in a cold room, might I recommend that?
Thank you, Krishana. I really appreciate you taking some time to share your passion and your knowledge with us. And thanks to everybody for watching. Get out there and explore. I am delighted to welcome my friend and fellow forager, Nora.
Hi.
And so Nora, you actually, why you're here now is because we're going to talk tea, and you sparked my interest in tea. Tell us, how did you start thinking tea?
Well, I feel like tea is relaxing, and sometimes you can forage it.
That's right. Now, let's talk about... Say that again.
It can be free.
And because why? Where's it growing?
It's just growing in my backyard.
Right. You called me over one day because you had seen Creeping Charlie and you were wondering, can this plant be eaten? Can we use this plant for anything?
It turned out to be my favorite tea.
It's my favorite tea too. It tastes wonderful. I don't need sugar. I don't need honey. Just straight up Creeping Charlie.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna have some tea, all right? So we have the Creeping Charlie. This is loose leaf tea, and I like it that way because if you grind it up any farther, I don't know, I prefer it loose leaf. And then these little bags, they're handy, aren't they? So you can reuse them over and over and over.
And it can become, and you can use them for powder. You can't use these for powder.
Are we gonna use your little tea ball there?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with a reusable tea bag. Put the loose leaf dried
Creeping Charlie there, and I'm gonna just pour mine. And we will let that sit for a little bit, and then give it a good little shake there. And you are packing your tea ball.
Yep.
All right. Can I help you out?
Thank you.
And honestly, and tell me if you feel the same way, you can never have too much, right? Like,
Yeah.
it just tastes delicious. And I
Yeah.
like a good strong tea.
Could you
Yes.
help?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for turning me on to Creeping Charlie tea. Okay, so your Creeping Charlie is in your tea ball there. And I'll get you some water.
Why, thank you.
Yes. Okay, watch your hands.
A little more.
A little more.
There's never too much tea, am I right? Creeping Charlie tea,
There you go, my dear.
especially.
All right. Smells good.
Mine's already smelling like Creeping Charlie tea.
Yes, and this is a good way too if you're stuffed up, just inhaling like the steam from the tea, especially with nettle or with Creeping Charlie, it's gonna help loosen your sinuses. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Cheers to a good harvest of Creeping Charlie.
Cheers.
Oh, yep, cheers.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. By Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota. On the web at shalomhillfarm.org. And by the Friends of Prairie Sportsman. To become a friend of Prairie Sportsman, visit pioneer.org/Prairie Sportsman.